Welcome to episode 100 of my podcast, The View from the Crow's Nest. It is Sunday the 13th of September 2020 and we have reached episode 100. So I'm quickly going to state the position of the podcast right now, recap my day and then close it off. It's not going to be a very long one given the above agenda. So currently, according to the analytics on anchor.com or Anchor app or whatever, which is what I use to record the podcast. On my 100th episode, well, this is the 100th, so it's not the 100th, but it has been listened to 441 times. That doesn't include YouTube, but I don't think the YouTube listens are particularly great in terms of going to make much of a difference to that. Maybe a few, maybe a few per episode, so I guess that could be another 50 or 100 or whatever, so maybe 500, but 441, and apparently I have now an average listenership of 5. Now that's awesome, because that's 25% higher than it was, up till about a week ago, where it has been at 4. And looking at the stats, which I just did in order to be able to tell you this stuff, I haven't been tracking them, to be honest, but I just looked, and it seems I just had my best week ever. I think it was 66 plays in 1 week or something, I think, and it looks like there's a little bit of an uplift in the past month, which would make sense. We've gone from 4 to 5 regular listeners, so that's pretty much you, or you, and that's awesome, because you've been listening, so you know exactly what these are like, and they're not really full of wisdom or wit. And they're probably not all that interesting a lot of the time. So they're kind of like a diary, really. So thank you very much for being so awesome and sticking with them. Maybe that's a sign of things to come, a slow build. But on that note, and just to reiterate, if you are one of the few or the new who's just come to this, so the original idea of this podcast was because I wanted to do something that kept me feeling like I was doing something busy. There's a few reasons. One could do social media posts, this, that, the other, blah, blah. People say you should post on Instagram every day and all of this stuff. And I wanted something that I could do, but something that I could keep up with. And wherever I was, something that was easy to do. So that was one reason for thinking, a daily podcast, that I could probably do because I like talking. 2, speaking of the like talking, I think I just read a book or something, maybe it was in my mind or had been in my mind, that, there's so many options for expressing yourself through different art forms, and that might be photography or whatever. Some people love using Facebook, some people love using Twitter, some people love doing videos, some people, etc. YouTube, and I love talking. I do. I love talking. So it was a very natural idea, really, to go with the best. Go with the medium that you're most comfortable in, and talking is very easy. So, that's the second reason for the podcast. The third reason for the podcast was to create a diary for myself, effectively, of my thoughts of what I was up to. That may or may not be of use or interest at any time later in the future. But like all things, if you don't record it, if you don't put it down, if you don't do it, if you don't have that data, you can never go back and get it. So it's kind of like, okay, let me do that. And because, these last few months, life really is changing. Obviously, coronavirus has changed a lot of things, but our personal journey as a family and my personal journey, I can feel that it's undergoing really quite a significant change, probably one of the biggest changes that I've had in years. And it's by certainly no means finished. It's like it's just at the beginning of that change, but I feel like it's basically at the start of a very big new chapter, a new phase of the life, which might be another 5-10 year phase, who knows. But it's I feel like there's a corner kind of turned, and this podcast is kind of going to be the narrative of that. And then the last part, which relates back to the 5 people average listenership or whatever, comes down to this. Anybody who is successful, whoever you feel is successful and relatively well known in the public eye, if you go to their social media, they have lots of people who might, comment, retweet, read up on what they say, this, that, the other. Anybody who's not successful and in the public eye, no one goes and looks at what they're doing or what they're up to. That's pretty much the kind of point of being in the public eye. So basically, it's another way of saying nothing has any value to other people until, the current thing you're doing has value, and then they look back at the previous things and go, oh, that's valuable, that's interesting. And my thinking was, if or when any of the things that I do become more valuable to more people, more used by more people or enjoyed or what have you, then the value of these podcasts might go up as far as other people are concerned. So you guys are like complete hardcore because right now, it's just you and I. In time, there might be other people listening. We might get up to 6 to 7. Hopefully, my hope is that as I create and ship, to use Seth Godin's term, as I create stuff like music and art and business and whatnot and put it out there, that will attract more and more people who will be slowly, but who will be interested in my kind of daily thoughts, and it will give more gravitas and weight to what I'm saying as the audience expands. That's the idea. No idea whether it will actually go that way or not. Who knows? It might just be the 5 of us forever. But, I'm looking at it as the audience of this has risen 25% from 4 to 5 by the 100th episode. So if you imagine every 100 episodes growing the audience by 25%, probably every 50 episodes or something, 75 episodes, it grows by 25%. After a while, that makes quite a difference. Might take a while, but it'll make quite a difference. Slow start, faster finish. Anyhow, so that's my ramble on the podcast and a long way of saying thank you very much for supporting by listening. And the state of play on 100th episode. The second part of this is my day. Continuing my descent this week in energy levels. Yesterday I had a day off, and today I had another day off. That's it, 2 days in a row. I was tired, really tired, and the only thing I can really put it down to, apart from not necessarily getting enough sleep, is how draining I'm finding the Italian, particularly, that I'm doing this Italian study ahead of my exam in, actually it was a week, it wasn't meant to be the 16th, then in classic Italian style, you book the exam, and you say, what time is it? I say, well, book the exam and then I'll tell you the time. Okay, so you book, you pay, and then you're waiting for them to tell you the time, which is obviously inconvenient anyway, because you would imagine they'd tell you the time and then you could book. And then they're like, okay, great, we've got your place. It's not the 16th, it's the 21st. It's like, well, how is that even related? And it's at 5 p.m. When we therefore pointed out that the 21st of September at 5 p.m, though brilliantly it gives me an extra week, is also my 40th birthday. And I do not want to be going into Naples on my 40th birthday for the evening so that I can take an Italian exam. Joy. So we managed to get them to move it to the next day at about 2 p.m. So the day after my 40th at 2 p.m, I have it. So if I was thinking of having a raving crazy 40th birthday party and being blind drunk, much as I was at my brother's 40th birthday party, forget about that, because I'm not going to that exam with a big fat hangover feeling all slow, because I really can't do that. So the good news is I've got a couple of weeks to do it. The bad news is it's right after my birthday. So be it. However, so I've been studying for it, and my brain's I'm really trying to get it, my head around Italian, so I can be prepared as best I can for this oral exam and pass it, and therefore be able to qualify to get my citizenship for Italy, which means that I'll then become an EU citizen, so I can travel freely with Simona and the kids around Europe and not have to worry about this pointless, stupid Brexit business. Well, not pointless, but it is, in my opinion, a backward step. Nonetheless, I digress. So yeah, I hadn't realised, I think, how much this is really draining me, and I think I realised today why it is because basically I'm not used to being so challenged by something. I think that's what it comes down to, mentally challenged, as in everything I've learned for years and years, as long as I can remember really, I learn it, maybe I read it or I watch a video on it, something, and basically the information's in my head, that's it, I've got it, and then I can use it and access it. Obviously, if it's very specific information and I don't try and use it for years afterwards, then I might kind of forget it a bit. But basically, concepts, they go into my brain, I can grab them pretty quickly. And this is something, therefore, I'm not used to. I'm not used to struggling to retain and utilise concepts and information. And it's really stressing me, really stressing me and really draining my energy. So I cannot wait for it to be over, frankly, get this test out of the way. Then the pressure's off, hopefully, and then hopefully, I can learn the language at a bit more of a slower pace. And well, it's the thing. I know the language to a degree, and I know some of the grammar rules, but I just can't keep them in my head. anyway, that's my whinge over. So today I had another day off, and I had an Italian lesson at 10 o'clock this morning. I only did an hour because that just drove me, and I was in a good mood when I woke up, and then I was super stressed when I finished this lesson. About halfway through, I just had a brain freeze, and I was heavily challenged by it. And it took me a couple of hours to work my way out of that stressed funk. But what I did do, which was really, really cool, is Leonardo had an afternoon nap. He doesn't always, in fact, more recently he started having them again, but before this week he hadn't had one in weeks, if not months. So he had an afternoon nap, and Simona was like, look, I wouldn't mind going to the beach. And I said, I really don't have the energy to leave the house. And Mina didn't want to leave the house, so Sim said, well, okay, you guys, all we wanted to do is sit on the couch and do something or watch TV. So Sim went out to the beach. That's just Mina and I, and it's not that often that it's just Mina and I. So we went through we watched 4 different programs, all like educational programs for kids. One on science, one on biology, one on history, and one on kind of critical thinking, I guess is probably the best thing I could say. And it was really cool because we went through, we cuddled on the sofa and went through, and we paused the video or paused the program every few minutes when we needed to discuss and delve into the concepts that they were mentioning. So asking Mina her thoughts, why this, why that, why does she think, what consequence, blah blah blah, and that was really enjoyable. She really enjoyed it. And then when we finished those 4, we fired up Cubasis on the iPad, which is a music production program, and we started doing music learning by building a track. We were looking at importing sample loops and then time stretching them so they fit our tempo that we picked, and then playing around with some new instruments. It was really, really cool. So basically, having just working so much, I realised how little time I've spent just with the kids one-on-one and doing educationally stuff and doing fun stuff, and so that was really cool. And then we finished it off by starting to watch the 3rd Lord of the Rings. So we're now an hour into the Return of the King, which Mina is absolutely loving. So that's been my day, and that's where the podcast is. This is where I am. Tomorrow is a new week. Oh, but I have a new phrase which I'm going to try and maintain. I just finished reading the 2nd recent book from Derek Sivers, who is an author that I very much admire. I really like his thinking, and he kind of, in fact, his books are very short, like almost 1-page chapters, each with a different concept or related concepts, but maybe from a different angle, talking about life and business and just his view on things. And one of those that I read probably sums up his thinking very well in the way he explains things, which is, I'm going to butcher it a bit, but paraphrase it, which was his opinion, or one's opinion, is like the counter melody in life's melody. So, the general narrative, the general standard way of thinking, let's say, is melody. And the counter melody, for those that don't know, is a melody, is a melody, a run of notes that work against and probably in the opposite direction to the main melody. And in fact, the counter melody could be a melody on its own, in its own right, but between them, they kind of are greater than the sum of their parts because they create harmony as they're flowing. So what he was saying is, it's not that you take one person's opinion or one road or one idea and that's the only way. It's absolutely you take one, but the other one informs and actually enriches, and therefore each one of us is like a counter melody to life's general melody. So his writing, his viewpoint on everything tends to be like the counter melody. It's almost counterintuitive, or it's almost going against the norm, but actually there's I find so much wisdom, and he's a very succinct writer, and he's got a very interesting story and backstory as well. So yeah, I really like his writing. So I just finished he recently released 2 books, one on music and kind of music marketing. He was a musician, then he founded CD Baby, and then he sold it, and then all sorts. And the other one is kind of a continuation on that, because they're both really metaphors for life in all ways. Anyways, he is very much one for kind of, chilling and kind of, I mean, he works incredibly hard, but what I mean is like, just relax. It's not, nothing's that serious, or if it is, you can look at it a different way and da, 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 da. So maybe with that mindset on, and this recent stress about the Italian exam, about bringing on board new teammates for Audience Ninja, about the need to bring revenue in and start earning some money, because we're at the point now where we haven't got too much longer of kind of savings, as it were, to tide us over before we really need some extra input. We could do with leaving my mother-in-law's after 5 months or whatever, so we can kind of have a bit of our own place again and start moving about again, which obviously needs money, which leads to business, which leads to pressure, and all of the above, etc., etc. And so, in view of not educating the kids as much as I'd like, not playing with them as much as I like, not spending as much time with my wife as I'd like, not, very rarely taking time to just do enjoyable things, in the present, because I'm always thinking in the future. I'm very future focused, very delayed gratification, very much about, planning and trying to build this ideal future and work-life balance and all of that. And actually, if you spend your whole time building these future things, then obviously it's too much in the future and not enough in just being and enjoying the present. So, after that massive preamble, my new phrase that I'm going to try as of today, that came into my head, that I'm going to now use is, drum roll, are you ready? This is the big reveal. 3 words. It can wait. It can wait. That's it. I'm going to try and apply that to everything. When I feel stressed because I've got all this work on, I said I'd reply to this person, I've got all these emails in, or I've got this, I've got to send that, I've got to do. It can wait. Oh no, I must study this, I must study that, I must. It can wait. Obviously there'll be exceptions, and those are the emergencies, true emergencies, health emergencies, or whatever. Everything else, it can wait. Simple. So I don't know how long I'm going to be able to flow with that mindset. Maybe it's these 2 days off, which I've really needed, that have helped me to develop a slightly more laissez-faire attitude to things. But that's where I'm at right now. It can wait. And in a completely roundabout way, relating back to what I was saying about this podcast at the beginning, now it's just coming to my mind. So you may have noticed, so the podcast, as I said, was, so I felt like I was doing something daily, I was doing something, I was building something, I was busy, I was doing something social and putting some content out there. And then recently, you might have noticed, or might not, on my Instagram I was posting a photo a day at least of me, because apparently those are the photos that seem to get most positive reactions from people, is just simple photos of me, which I can't really understand, but there we go. So I was posting photos of me, and I started the Daily Noodle, a video series where I was just trying to get my arse outside to play guitar and have a break from work, and then I was filming it by way of creating daily content that may or may not be useful or interesting or whatever. And I was putting those out for about 8 days, and they'd become a challenge. Like, I wasn't in the mood to do them, I had to force myself, and So there we go, I'm putting out this content, and then I'm sharing it from IGTV to Facebook and then to YouTube, and all of this faffing about, all of this busyness. But when I looked, at the stats, it was quite clear, I think, that it's not lighting the world on fire. I was getting some nice feedback, some nice comments, this, that, the other. But the truth is, actually, all of that is just busyness. It's 15, 20 minutes here, 5, 10, 15 minutes there. It's thinking about it, stressing about it, which means you've got switching costs. Switching costs being if you're doing one thing and you're worried about something else, and then you go and do the other thing, and then you come back. It's not just the time it took you to do the other thing, it's all the time that you spent thinking or worrying about it up till then. It's the energy that when you switch, you don't go straight back into the other tasks. You've got to kind of warm yourself back into it, get into your flow. So those are switching costs. So a task that takes you 10 minutes actually probably takes you 20 minutes or half an hour, if you see what I mean. So they all had these switching costs. They all took time and resource, and that's time is the most limited resource, the only one we can't really replenish. And as a consequence, I did it for a little bit and posted it, and then I couldn't be bothered. The only thing I could be bothered to do it every day was the podcast. So I just thought to myself, well, that's clearly your thing. Just keep doing your daily podcast. Maybe, the videos might get 100 people watching and the podcast might have 5 people listening. But you know what? The podcast is what you kind of enjoy doing. It's easy. That's fine. The others are stressful. And the podcast is my way of putting closure on a day as well, whereas the others I've got to try and fit in and do that. And I realised something which I'd realised before and forgotten, and now I'm kind of sharing it with anybody who may be going down this road as well, any artists particularly, and people who feel that they must be constantly sharing stuff with the world. Must share stuff so the world doesn't forget about me. That means I've got to tweet, I'm talking about more social media sharing, pictures and this, that, and the other. And I realised, at least this is my current take on it, and maybe it's because it can wait to everything else, which is this. And it kind of goes for something about business as well. There's an idea that don't start a business until people are asking you to, until people want to pay you for doing something, and then you've got a business. Until then, don't start. So with that kind of in mind, with those concepts in mind, I'm kind of thinking like this. When you create, if you spend your time creating something of genuine value, so as a musician that might be a song, or more likely an album, but something finished, complete. And by finished, complete, I don't mean perfect, I just mean finished and complete enough that you can put it out there and people can enjoy it and get value from it. It could be a book if you're a blogger, it could be blog posts if you're you make widgets for your business, it's making widgets. If you do sell a service, you're a consultant. Whatever it is, whatever that product is, that thing that you put out there that has value, that has value. And that's what you should spend your time doing. Sounds obvious, right? So, to my mind, I was just thinking, until people start contacting you over the thing that you're putting out there that is value, until people are missing it or asking you where they can buy it or asking you when the next one's coming, or but unlooked for inbound messages, emails, whatever on social media saying, oh, that was great, I really enjoyed that, I've discovered this, I want to hear more, I want to see more, I want to enjoy more, I want to use more, I want whatever it is. Until that's coming in, no amount of daily faffing on social media, pictures here or whatever there, that doesn't make any difference, really. And although the narrative of marketing people generally is you must post every day, you must do this every day, you must you must own the platform, you must ask your audience questions, you must do this, you must do that, show your life, Actually, the truth is, until people are asking you for the main thing that you're creating, when's the next one? Where can I get more? Where can I enjoy, buy, whatever, consume, order, whatever it is? Until you're getting that in, all you should be doing is working on improving more of that one product and putting it out there. Now, of course, you do need marketing to get it to people, but actually there's a really quick and easy way to do that. You put some money on ads on Facebook. You make that content go to 10,000 people, 100,000 people, which is still pretty cheap even now, relative, and you see how people react to it. And if they're reacting positively, if by just seeing it they're coming to you and saying this is great, then you know that you've created something worthwhile, and those people are going to do things like start listening to your podcast or have more interest in your photo. But it should come that way. Your main creation, your main art, and I'm using the word art liberally, it could be in your work, your main work, let's say, whatever type of work that is, I'm using that to encompass everything. The main thing that you do, that's what should be bringing people in to have interest in what you're doing. And if you don't have that first stage, then no amount of social media busyness is going to help. But once you've got that main stage, then the social media busyness is going to have an audience and people are going to be interested. Exactly what I was talking about as the hope for number 4 for this podcast. So that kind of let me off the hook. I feel much more relieved now. I'm like, you know what? And it will happen again. I'll go in a cycle. I'll start reading marketing stuff and I'll start thinking, oh, I'm not doing enough marketing. I'm not busy every day. I'm not And there was another thing actually that I'm really rambling today. There was another thing that Derek Sivers said in one of his books, which I thought was a really important point. He said, again, I'm going to mangle it, but it's basically along the line of you need to keep earning your title. So if you wrote a book 10 years ago, you were an author. But if you haven't written a book since, you're kind of not really an author anymore. because you haven't authored anything. 10 years ago you were an author, but times change, you change. And I think I've been kind of in that mindset. Like 5-6 years ago, I had what I was just talking about. People were having messages from people I didn't know who really liked what I was doing with my music, wanted to know more, wanted to have more, consume more, and it was wonderful. And I was spending a couple of hours a day replying to emails and messages from fans, and so I built a fan base. And some of those people wanted to pay me money to join my members club, and it was wonderful. And when I put something out there, it had traction. People wanted to hear it, see it, whatever. It was great. But for the last 6 years, probably, I've not really done that. So I still consider that I have this fan base, but the truth is actually I don't. I mean, I send emails out to people, and I get now quite a nice number of emails back from usually the same sort of people, maybe a group of about 100 people who might reply. But it's not like it was previously. And equally, therefore, I shouldn't consider it, like that. Things change and you change. You need to keep earning that. And what I realise is I haven't earned that for the last, however many years I've been focused on other business ideas and the kids. So I want to reset. I want to keep earning that. I want to re-earn that. So coming right back to it can wait. The other things, they can wait. The things that, everything's not important. It can wait. Everything that doesn't have to be done right this minute, it can wait. It's time to reset, refocus on the things that really matter and can really move the needle, that people really connect with. Of course, still need to bring some money in. So speak to me tomorrow, it might be a different story. But that's where I am right now. That is the view from the crow's nest. It was a long one. We're nearly 27 minutes in. So if you got this far, you truly are a champion. And I thank you for it. And I always say, if you do have any thoughts or feedback or ideas on this or riffs or whatever you want, then hit me up on Twitter @RomeoCrow. Did not intend it to be a long one today. They've been pretty short recently, but obviously I had a few things that I wanted to get off my chest or explain or put out there. I don't know whether the narrative is for me or whether it's for you. Hopefully it's a bit of both. Thank you very much for listening. That was the 100th episode, and I will speak to you tomorrow. Take care. Good night.